Hey guys, welcome back to Highway to Hank. I'm your host, Jason Petty. For the last 30 years, I've been portraying Hank Williams, that guy right there, single most influential figure in country music history. For 30 years, I got started in 1996 at the world famous Ryman Auditorium in the play called Lost Highway, right there. And especially excited because I got to meet all the people that knew Hank, that played in his band, that sang on the Grand Ole Opry with him. Uh, Family members, friends, all those people, and they wanted to share their stories about Hank with me. So part of what this channel is going to be about, those two boxes that are up in my attic right now full of Hank Williams stories that I wrote down from all these people who knew him best. I'm going to share those with you through these series. But also, we're going to take on our travels. We're going to tell you a lot about Hank. We're going to sing some songs and just generally have a good time reliving Hank's music and legacy and my travels on the road portraying Hank and getting to meet all the great people, see all the great sights. First of all, before we get started, please hit that like button and hit that subscribe button and share this video with all your friends on social media, or tell your friends, pick up the phone or raise the window and holler out to your neighbors, hey, go to Highway to Hank with Jason Petty on YouTube. It'd be nice. I'd certainly appreciate it. It would help this channel out a lot and get the word out. All right. So when I first got, hired, I guess, to portray Hank in 1996, first thought as an actor is to get into the character's mind. So how did Hank become Hank? First thing I could think of was his childhood. So that's what this episode's going to be about, is how he was influenced as a kid. And you'll see how going forward. First of all, let's go back to where it all started. September 17th, 1923, Mount Olive, Alabama, at the Mount Olive Baptist Church. Hank Williams was born. He was born Hiram King Williams. Real name was Hiram. All his buddies called him Harm because, we're from the South and we don't speak it the way everyone else does. But Hiram was a biblical name that his mama gave him, and he hated it. So eventually he changed it to Hank. But his mama's name was Lillian, Miss Lily, he called her. And his dad's name was Lon. And of course, Hank had an older sister by the name of Irene. Well, at the Mount Olive Baptist Church, Hank would stand up on a bench in church as a little boy while his mama played the church organ. And he would holler out these gospel songs. It wasn't singing. When you're that little, it ain't singing. It's hollering. That's exactly what everybody said Hank was doing. Holler at the top of his lungs to Amazing Grace, and there's power in the blood, and Blessed Assurance, and all those great songs. But that's where Hank learned to love the Lord and where he learned his love of gospel music. And that church is still there to this very day. It's one room, white church house, out in the middle of nowhere, out in the middle of LA, which is lower Alabama, for those of you that don't know. But I was raised in a one-room church. I was raised partially on my grandparents' farm in Hickman County, Tennessee. We had a one-room church with all of 18 members, and I just remember it just felt cozy. It just felt, you felt close to people. You felt close to the good Lord up above. So that's where Hank learned to sing. Later on, him and his mama and his sister would move on to Georgiana, Alabama, after his father had become institutionalized. His daddy, Lon, was a World War I veteran. God bless him for his service. But he came home with PTSD, or shell shock, they called it back in them days. And so he was institutionalized. So mama decided she needed to move to a little bit bigger town to help make a living. And she took in folks washing and cleaned houses. She also boiled peanuts and put them in little paper sacks and have Hank and his sister go down to the train depot there in Georgiana, Alabama, where they moved, and sell them. And Hank also started shining shoes as a little boy. And in Georgiana, Alabama, they've got the Boyhood Museum. They've still got the house there that Hank lived in. As a matter of fact, you can go down there. I saw for sale. You can buy bricks. They had to tear down one of the brick walls, and put a different wall in there. So they're selling those bricks. So you can own a brick of Hank's boyhood home down there in Georgiana, Alabama at the museum. But the cool thing they've got there is they've also got the little bench that Hank jumped up on into Mount Olive Baptist Church. It's really cool. It's just, I can just see his little feet on there toe tapping while he's singing. But they've also got the shoe shine stand that Hank used as a little kid when he would shine folks' shoes to make money. Um, but Georgiana is a really cool place, and if you sit in that front porch swing, 50 yards behind their house was the train tracks. Every once in a while, you can hear that lonesome whistle coming through, and I know that's where Hank got that lonesome feeling. You can imagine on them late summer evenings, Hank sitting there, his daddy's not around, he's feeling lonesome, and then all of a sudden you hear that lonesome whistle blow from that train coming by. That tells you. That tells you where Hank might have got part of that lonesomeness from. Now, across the tracks from there is the Georgiana Theater. It's still standing to this very day. And I met Hank's cousin back in 1996, and he took me over to the theater, Georgiana. And he said Hank, in his later teen years, came back to play that place. And he said him and Hank got really drunk on peach schnapps right before the show. It was right before Hank was getting ready to go on, and he motioned me over to a little place in the corner and showed me. He said, "See that spot right there?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "That's where Hank threw up peach schnapps." And then a second later, walked out on stage and did 30 minutes worth of songs. I was like, "Whew, Lord, that's a story right there." Said he must have been 15 years old probably when it happened. But anyway, so Hank now and his mama, a couple years after Georgiana, they moved to Greenville, Alabama, just up the train tracks, a few miles. That's where Hank would meet the number one musical influence of his life. The fella's name was Rufus Payne. He was a black street musician, blues musician. His nickname, though, was Tee-Tot, and Hank loved to hear him sing. Loved to hear him sing. Tee-Tot was an accomplished musician. He had played and learned his craft in New Orleans, and then moved back to his hometown of Greenville, where he rode the train every day, either north up to Montgomery or south down to Georgiana and as far south as Mobile, and get his guitar out of the case, leave the case open on the street corner, and people would throw coins in there. That's how he made his living. Well, Hank befriended him, kept going up to him because Hank was out there shining shoes and stuff as well. And Hank said, "Man, I'd love to sing and play like you." And Tee-Tot said, "Well, you can. I can teach you." And Hank first asked me, he said, "Well, how did you get that nickname, Tee-Tot?" Well, Tee-Tot was a notorious drinker. He always carried a flask, and it had half alcohol and half sweet tea, which, if you don't know, is the official drink of the South, sweet tea. And so people started calling him Tee-Tot. And he'd hold up that flask when Hank asked, and he'd say, "Well, this is my special tea, and I totally love it too." And he would take a big swig. And Hank loved it. But Tee-Tot said, "First off, if you want me to teach you, it ain't going to be free." He said, "You're going to have to pay me a little something." And he said, "And you got to get yourself a guitar." He said, "Go ask your mama, get you a Christmas present." That's what he did. And Mama Lily obliged. She got into the Sears and Roebuck catalog. I'm sure y'all remember Sears and Roebuck, the original Amazon. Of course, you didn't get 2-day free shipping with Sears and Roebuck. You got the 6 months, please let it get here before Christmas shipping. And then you had to go and get in your car and drive and pick it up. But anyway, he got his guitar. It was a silver tone, which was the Sears model, silver tone parlor guitar. And Hank loved it. Tee-Tot taught him how to play that guitar, taught him them chords. And he also taught him how to play for an audience, how to entertain them. He told him one important thing. He said, "Sing to an audience. Don't sing at them. There's a big difference between singing to somebody and singing at them. Look them in the eye, smile, wink. Make them feel like they're a part of the show." That was very important to Hank's charisma. Tee-Tot taught him that. Most important thing Tee-Tot taught him, though, was how to write a song. Hank Williams became the greatest, one of the greatest at least. I think he's the greatest country songwriter of all time. One piece of advice from Tee-Tot did it all. He said, "Write about what you know. Audiences can spot a fake from a mile away, but if you write about something you got a little knowledge about, it'll come across as honest, truthful. That is what connected Hank to his audience. Because you knew if Hank wrote it and sang it, he had lived every word. You could feel it in his voice. And it came through. Suddenly someone was singing to you, not at you. And you could relate to the subject matter. And people connected with Hank like they have never connected with anyone else. Little Jimmy Dickens once told me, he said, Hank had it. And I said, what is it? And he said, son, if I knew that, I'd have been richer than anybody you've ever known. He said, nobody knows what it is. Son, you got it, or either you don't. And Hank had it. And I call Hank the Elvis Presley of country music. That's exactly what he was. He had that lightning bolt. Only supposed to burn white hot for a short time. So that's how Hank got started. He got started with the blues and with gospel music. And I want to sing you a little bluesy type song that I'm sure was inspired by old Tee-Tot. It's called The Long Gone Lonesome Blues.
All right, here's an old bluesy song. I'm sure it's got a lot of Tee-Tot influences. It's called The Long Gone. Yeah, I put the hat on because it don't feel natural singing the Hank Williams song without the hat on. Anyway, this is called The Long Gone Lonesome Blues. I went down to the river to watch a fish swim by. When I got to the river, so lonesome I wanted to die. Oh Lord. But then I jumped in the river, but the doggone river was dry. She's a long gone, and now I'm lonesome blue. Well, I had me a woman, she couldn't be true. She made me for my money, then she made me blue. You know a man needs a woman he can lean on, but my leaning post is gonna live and gone. She's a long gone, and now I'm lonesome blue. One more time. She's a long gone, and now I'm lonesome blue. All right.
All right, folks, I hope you enjoyed that little song there. I love that one. That one always makes me smile. And you can feel that blues influence. Well, thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. I really do appreciate it. For all of you who've seen my shows or heard about me or whatever, thank you. 30 years, it's because of you and because of y'all's love for Hank Williams and for live theater and live music. I really, really appreciate it. Don't forget, as you leave, hit that like button, please, and hit that subscribe button, please. And if the good Lord's willing and the creeks don't rise, we'll see you for too long.